Breath of the Wild was the 18th installment in the Zelda franchise. It broke ground by being the first Zelda game to feature a truly open world with Zelda elements littered around the map. While other games like Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and many others had a map that you could explore, they were often Metroidvania-style games, restricting the map based on your items. The more you had, the more you could explore. Breath of the Wild was different, as there was nothing stopping you from climbing the peak of Death Mountain, the shores of Zora's Domain, immediately after the starting area. The game won multiple Game of the Year awards from the Game Critics Awards, Japan Game Awards, Golden Joystick Awards, and many others. It was one of the first Zelda games I ever 100% completed, and to this day remains my favorite Zelda game. However, with the game having launched in 2017, it is now 7 years old. Does it still stand up today? Is it a relic of its time? Have games gotten better than Breath of the Wild, leaving it in the dust? To answer these questions, I decided to do another playthrough of the game to refresh my memory of events. So after clearing room in my profiles, I launched a new game. Once again, we are treated to the iconic opening of light piercing through the darkness. Zelda talks to Link, telling him that it's time to get up. Upon Link's awakening, you are treated to a bare room. After retrieving the Sheikah Slate, a door opens into the second room. We're not given any instructions or guidance, instead we're left to open the second door on our own. After doing so, Zelda once again talks to you, saying that you must return to Hyrule. After climbing out the door, we are greeted with the opening shot of Hyrule, concluding with focusing on the old man. Let me take a step back here and praise the intro for a second. It is so well done. After First Awakening, we are given no instructions, no map markers, no control scheme, no nothing. The game waits for you to make discoveries on your own. Then, in the next room, the game once again steps back and waits for you to explore. They do not tell you to head to the next pedestal or give you a map marker. Instead, they trust you'll remember the pedestal from the previous room and check out the new one. Plus, with leaving the rooms rather empty, players will not have much time to be lost before checking everything. Finally, the opening shot of Hyrule. This shot conveys so much in just a few seconds. After leaving the sterile quietness of the Shrine of Resurrection, our senses are blasted by the entirety of Hyrule's map. We see so much to do and explore, it's honestly overwhelming. However, the game doesn't leave us overwhelmed. Instead, the cutscene seems to say, yes, there's a lot to do here and a lot to explore, but let's take it one step at a time. Go talk to this person first. Anyway, after leaving the Shrine of Resurrection, after a period of time, Zelda stops you and tells you to head towards the map marker. This, in turn, leads you to the tower. During the tower raising, you see a cutscene of towers all across Hyrule, once again showing you a sneak peek of everything you're going to be experiencing. After raising the tower, Zelda once again talks to you and tells you that you've been asleep for 100 years while she's been fending off Ganon for all that time. But her strength is failing her, and you must hurry to help her before Ganon can overwhelm her. You get a glimpse of Calamity Ganon and the Sanctum where Zelda is fighting with him. The cutscene ends, and you're left to make your way down the tower on your own. Once at the bottom, the old man flies over and talks with you, inquiring about your plans. After your dialogue with him, he introduces you to the shrines and tells you to enter the shrine and find the treasure inside in exchange for the paraglider. Again, the game's pacing is superb. Coming from the Shrine of Resurrection, your senses are blasted with the absolute scale of the map. Then the game quiets down again to have you talk to the old man. Then once you get to the tower, your senses are once again blasted with the scale of the world through the tower raising cutscene. Then the game focuses you on the main goal, that of beating Ganon. From very early on, the game is telling you what the goal is and where to go. I like this because the game is staying very focused on its goals. Because the game has this focus, you know where to go and what to do even if you decide to head off the beaten path for a long time. Another brilliant choice is the music. So far, the only times where there has been music was the intro scene where you exit the Shrine of Resurrection and when you raise the tower. Otherwise, as mentioned earlier, the game is basically stepping back and letting you experience everything on your own time, in your own way. There's not constantly changing music trying to always set the tone. Instead, you feel the quiet loneliness of the world, as if you were truly in a post-apocalyptic world quietly trying to rebuild society. Finally, the attention to detail in this game is superb. For example, after raising the tower, talking to the old man, and walking over to look at the shrine, the old man is focusing your attention on the shrine, but off in the distance, you can see one of the divine beasts. They've positioned the shrine and made a cut in the land so that you have a direct line of sight to Vah Medoh. Once again, the game is looking towards the goals, showing you what the endpoint is. That's one thing I really appreciate about this game is that it doesn't try to obfuscate the points of the missions, rather you always know exactly what you have to do. The challenge and fun in the game is figuring out how to reach the goals. Back to the game, we enter Magnesis and inquire the treasure within. After leaving, the old man swoops down again, tells us that the shrines were made by the ancient Sheikah, and says that we need 4 spirit orbs total to receive the glider, not just 1. So we head back into the Great Plateau, acquiring bombs, where you're introduced to Guardians, Stasis, and Cryonis. After getting all of the powers, the old man swoops down one last time. He tells us it's time for us to learn everything and to open our map. Where the 4 shrines intersect, there he will be waiting. He fades into oblivion, and we make our way back to the Temple of Time. After upgrading stamina first, as everyone should, the old man directs us up towards the belfry. Once there, he exposits all over Link. Let's stop this recap for a moment to talk about the powers. Nintendo decided to drop the standard item/power progression in favor of giving you almost everything at once. While I do greatly enjoy the Metroidvania-style progression of earlier games, where you slowly unlock items that open up more of the map to unlock more items, the system works well for an open-world game. Because there is no specific path you are supposed to head down, the game gives you everything you'll need to get anywhere. Also, the powers are well suited to the game. In earlier Zelda games, many of the items you received were very situational, like the ball and chain from Twilight Princess. While you could force it to be a weapon, most players just pulled it out to break a few walls that blocked their path, then never touched it again. However, in this game, the abilities you get are the opposite of that. No one power has a specific use case, instead they're all well-rounded enough that they can be used anywhere you want. Much like the Switch itself, they do not excel at any one particular thing, but they do everything rather well. One last thing I really appreciate about the powers is the game once again does not tell you what to do with said abilities. After you get the first rune, the game simply tells you what button to press to activate the power. There's no 12-page tutorial outlining everything you could possibly do. Rather, once again the game steps back and waits for you to discover things on your own. For instance, with Magnesis, I learned you could hit enemies with manipulated objects by accident long after I started playing. Since the game never told me, I had a sense of discovery and realization years later. Back to where we left off, the old man tells us the backstory Link forgot. He reveals that he is King Rome Bosphoramus Hyrule, the last king of Hyrule. 100 years ago, the Hylians remembered the tales of Ganon. They knew that he would return eventually, so they wanted to prepare to hopefully fend off Ganon. They pored through ancient texts and lore, and stumbled across the tale of the Divine Beast and Guardians. 10,000 years ago, the ancient Sheikah produced monstrous machines called Divine Beasts, and Guardians as foot soldiers. With these creations, they prepared for any threat that would come their way. When Ganon returned, they deftly defeated him, and peace came to the land for as long as they lived. The Highlands 100 years ago realized these machines could still be used to defeat Ganon, so massive excavations began. Numerous guardians were uncovered, as well as the 4 divine beasts. Zelda picked 4 champions, Daruk, Revali, Mipha, and Urbosa, to be the champions of their races and to pilot these divine beasts. When Ganon inevitably returned, however, he remembered his defeat at the hands of the ancient Sheikah. In his cunning, he turned the machines against their handlers, and the guardians began rampaging across Hyrule. Ganon also dispatched minor copies of himself into the 4 divine beasts, slaying the 4 champions. Link himself fell in battle defending Zelda. All alone, Zelda ordered Link to be entombed in the Shrine of Resurrection in the hopes that he'd one day return. Then she went to face off against Ganon alone. During that attack, the king lost his life. He then asked that you accomplish what he could not to save Zelda. To do this, he implores you to head to Impa in Kakariko Village. With that, he has told us everything and fades. We receive the paraglider and head into Hyrule proper for the first time. Now, the backstory here, I would argue, is phenomenal. Most Zelda games simply feature the Hylians caught unawares by the evil, usually Ganon, Zelda somehow trapped by said evil, or hiding, and Link starting his quest to defeat the evil and rescue Zelda. It works, but it's rather formulaic and it's rather shallow. Ocarina played around with a deeper story, having Zelda hide a Sheik and Ganon cleverly reacting to other characters' actions. However, in this game, the story is so much deeper than any other Zelda game I have yet played, including Tears of the Kingdom. The Hylians display wisdom in trying to resist Ganon's takeover. They know he's coming back, and they do their absolute best to prepare for him. Ganon, on the other hand, remembers his encounter with the ancient Sheik attack and acts accordingly, so he can turn what would have been a disastrous situation to his advantage. Zelda herself isn't some helpless maiden as she has been in past games. Rather, she fends off Ganon for 100 years. However, she knows she cannot truly defeat Ganon without Link and without the sword that seals the darkness. So she fights Ganon not to defeat him, but to stall him until Link can revive. Every character is doing their absolute most they can to achieve their goals, and I for one think that's very well written. Back to the game. After touching down in Hyrule Kingdom, we make our way over to Impa. After a long walk, we make it into Kakariko Village. Entering the Elda's house, we see Impa for the first time. She is old and wizened, but still remembers everything from 100 years ago. She, however, quickly realizes that we do not. She informs us that she has a message from Zelda to give to us, but we must be ready for it. Before telling us Zelda's message, she gives us a bit more backstory to Hyrule. She tells us that every so often the spirit of the hero and the spirit of the princess are reborn soon before Ganon returns. She again tells of the ancient Sheikah who 10,000 years ago constructed the Guardians and the 4 divine beasts to ward off Ganon. She then reveals her message from Zelda, which is to free the 4 divine beasts. She informs us that the 4 divine beasts can be found near the 4 races of Hyrule. She also mentions that our memories can be reawakened if we fix the Sheikah slate in Hateno Village. As a quick aside, I want to again notice how well the game does here plot-wise. Again, we have our goal of defeating Ganon. The game points us towards the 4 divine beasts in order to free them to defeat Ganon. The game is never losing sight of the end goal and is telling you the necessary steps you should take to reach your goal. As mentioned earlier, the difficulty and enjoyment of the game comes not from discovering the goal, but rather in how you reach said goal. Not like in Tears of the Kingdom, but that'll be my next video. Returning to the game, here we are presented with 4 choices, either free Vah Naboris, Vah Medoh, Vah Rudania, or Vah Ruta first. I decided to head to Vah Ruta, as this is the one the game suggests first. On the way to Zora's domain, we run across a couple Zora. They stop us and ask that we meet Prince Sidon at Inago Bridge, for he has something to tell us. However, we have a choice here. Normally, we can meet Sidon at Inago Bridge, and this triggers a cutscene where we're introduced to him, he gives us a couple elixirs, and cheers us on our way. Later down the line, when we're on a tall bridge, he stops us one more time, tells us we're close, and a blue moblin spawns behind us. However, the devs took the time and care to really make this an open world, open-ended game, in that you don't have to meet Sidon at Inago Bridge. You can instead completely bypass him by gliding over top. Then, he never talks to you, he never introduces himself, no blue moblin spawns on the bridge, and when you get into Zora's domain, you get an entirely new cutscene that plays. Rather than forcing you down one linear path, saying you must meet Sidon here and do this to activate the quest, the game instead lets the player pick how they want to play. Back to Zora's domain though, reaching it however we want, we begin the council. Here we learn that Vah Ruta has been spouting water non-stop for a long time, and that water now threatens to burst the eastern reservoir. The Zora have tried to stop the divine beast, and knew that shock arrows could stop the flow of water, having learned that from Mipha's notes and their own testing. However, since they are an aquatic race, they are highly susceptible to shock and cannot wield shock arrows to stop the beast. So they enlist the help of Link to stop Vah Ruta from flooding not only Zora's domain, but all the lowlands downriver from them. Link then receives a Zora tunic as a token of their gratitude. This angers Muzu, who storms off in a rage. Muzu has always had a distrust of the Hylians, something that has only grown following Mipha's death. He blames the Hylians for her death. We are then tasked with talking to Muzu to calm him down, as he is the only one who knows where to find enough shock arrows nearby to challenge Vah Ruta. After equipping the tunic, we head down to Muzu and Sidon. There we see Mipha's statue in the square. This triggers Mipha's memory. In said memory, we see Mipha healing Link. She states that she'll always be there to heal us, not so subtly hinting at her love for Link. The memory fades and Muzu asks if we're okay. After learning that we remember Mipha now, he finally spies us wearing the Zora tunic. He realizes it's a perfect fit and must have been made for Link specifically. Good thing Link didn't change in 100 years. Muzu then realizes that Mipha did love Link, and realizes that his deep-seated hatred for Hylians might be unjustified. He tells us that the shock arrows can be found on Shatterback Point near the Lionel. We are tasked with collecting arrows, then meeting Sidon at the pier near Vah Ruta. Taking a step back here, I first want to touch on the player's introduction to this area. When we arrive, the Zora clearly lay out their need for a Hylian's help. There's no faffing about with ulterior motives, no sideways missions that somehow result in you ending up in the Divine Beast. Just a very clear-cut, we need shock arrows to stop Ruta. We cannot handle shock arrows, you can handle shock arrows, could you stop Vah Ruta? Again, the game is focusing your attention on the goal and not trying to distract you with random side quests. I also want to take a look at Muzu. If I'm being honest, his character arc is a little rushed due to him being a side character after all. However, his initial starting point of hating all Hylians is very well justified in-game. He's always had a mistrust of Hylians, perhaps a reference to the Zora in older Zelda games that would attack Link on sight. Compounding that, he feels that the Hylians let his beloved charge, Mipha, die without trying to save her. So, very understandably, he looks with scorn on Link, because he is both a Hylian and could possibly have saved Mipha. However, after seeing the tunic on Link and realizing what lengths Link is going to save the Zora, he starts to realize that perhaps the Hylians aren't the bad guys after all. At the very end of the questline, he even admits that he was in the wrong, asks for Link's forgiveness, and presents Mipha's own weapon to him. It's a complete arc that sums everything up nicely, and I appreciate the game for at least trying to give him a character instead of making him a faceless Zora. Next, I want to talk about the champion memory. This is the first one we have seen so far, though my thoughts on this one memory also apply to all the other champion memories as well. The game does a fantastic job of not only giving us a glimpse into the history between Link and the champion, but also reveals a lot about the champion as well. Mipha is portrayed as caring and loving to a fault here. Not only do we get this lovely character moment, but we also get to see the future power at work as well. So in less than a minute, we as the player know who Mipha is and what her character is, how she interacts with Link, and some backstory to the events that happened 100 years ago, and the power we receive at the end of the quest. Again, all in under a minute without feeling forced or rushed. Back to the game, we swim up Shatterback Point. Here we are first introduced to a Lynel. Though the introduction to him is supposed to be scary, of course we're going to defeat him, because Lynels are pushovers. So I collect my arrows and head back to Sidon at the pier. Sidon asks if we're ready to fight Vah Ruta. After confirming, the fight begins. We have to deflect ice blocks and mines, then dash up the side of Vah Ruta and take out the orbs on its back. The fight, though quick, is enjoyable, as there isn't much like it so far. After entering the Divine Beast, Mipha talks with us. She is thrilled to see us and tells us to get a map to avoid getting lost. After acquiring said map, Mipha tells us to activate 5 terminals around the place in order to wrest control back from Ganon. After activating the 5th terminal, Mipha tells us to head back to the main control unit and prepare for a fight. Now it's time to face off against Water Blight. His attacks can be tricky, but a couple of dodges here, a stasis there, and a few arrows everywhere quickly sees this fight finish. Water Blight is destroyed and we receive our heart. Mipha materializes and thanks us for freeing her spirit. She tells us that she had almost given up hope of seeing Link again, and she had resigned herself to an eternity being trapped inside the Divine Beast with Ganon. She expresses her doomed love and tells us that she will be ready to attack Ganon when the moment comes. With that, we fly off into the sky. Vah Ruta sinks below the waves of the eastern reservoir and swims to a nearby mountain. There, it takes aim at Ganon. Mipha stands aloft in the Divine Beast, wishing she could talk to her family one last time. She wishes she could express to them that none of what happened 100 years ago was their fault, and she hopes they're all doing well. We reappear in Zora's domain, receive Mipha's grace, and attend a celebratory speech. King Dorsalfin thanks us for saving the realm and putting a stop to Vah Ruta. Muzu fully comes around as well, admitting that he was wrong to hate Link. He personally presents you with Mipha's trident. Sidon finally congratulates you as well, and the scene fades. With that, the Zora questline is complete. Reflecting on this section, starting with the Lynel, I want to acknowledge that the Lynel is a worthy threat. This early in the game, most players do not have much health or many weapons at their disposal. However, you as the player are not forced into combat with him. Again, the game tells you exactly what the goal is, but lets you figure out how to get there. You can choose to sneak around picking up arrows and avoiding the monster entirely, or you can go in Rambo style, weapons blazing, and try and defeat this enemy. Both tactics work, it's simply up to you to decide how you want to approach this obstacle. Second, I want to take a look at the Divine Beast. The Divine Beasts are essentially the dungeons longtime Zelda fans are used to. While they're longer than the shrines, I must admit they're still pretty short overall. If you know what you're doing and where to go, you can complete most of the Divine Beasts in under 10 minutes. There are some fun challenges to be had in these mechanical monstrosities, but they feel more like side areas instead of big dungeons. Next, I want to take a look at Mipha herself. With her and all the champions, Nintendo truly pulled off a miracle. She is a fully fleshed out character with depth and a backstory and a connection to Link. However, the impressive part is that we only see her for less than 10 minutes total in the base game. None of her cutscenes feel rushed or forced, however they do accomplish a lot in a very short period of time. It's an amazing feat that people are still talking about her years after the game released, even though she was only in the game for a short period of time. Heading back into the game, it's now time to pick one of the 3 remaining Divine Beasts. I decided to go with the Gerudo, as Thunderblight tends to be a tough fight due to him having increased health if fought later. Heading into the Bazaar, we once again get the initial glimpse of the Divine Beast. With the whole thing shrouded in sand and dust, lightning flashing, and ominous music, this divine beast looks like something you wouldn't want to trifle with. The cutscene ends and we head towards Gerudo Village. There we talk with a man outside to get the Entry to Gerudo Village quest started. Heading back to the bazaar, there is now a man standing atop one of the buildings. Talking with him, he sells us the disguise we need. We are now allowed access to the town, so we head into the throne room. There we meet Ryu. She asks for our help stopping the divine beast from rampaging. In order to do this, she asks that we retrieve the Thunder Helm from the Iga, who have stolen it. We comply, so it's off to the Iga hideout. Once inside the hideout, we sneak our way through, distracting the guards along the way, until we reach Master Koga. Taking a step back for a moment, I want to take a moment and appreciate the Entry to Gerudo Village quest. Most previous Zelda games that featured Gerudo Village had some sort of challenge or puzzle you needed to solve in order to gain access to the town. In this game, it's no different. While this is keeping with tradition, I recognize that Nintendo still did something unique with this quest. Instead of sneaking through a hideout to free prisoners or swimming around patrolling boats, we have to do something new and unique. Later entries into the franchise could really take notes here. I also want to take a moment and recognize Nintendo's efforts at world building. For instance, the throne room of the Gerudo. One of the first things player will notice when seeing Ryu on the throne for the first time is how small she looks compared to the chair. But what a lot of people, myself included, missed for a long time was the fact that she was in fact sitting on a booster seat. It's very subtle and the game never draws attention to it, but it's another reminder that Ryu is not just battling her inexperience, but her youth as well to lead the Gerudo. Back to the game, we return to Master Koga. He is the leader of the Iga and has been setting his underlings on Link all throughout Hyrule. He expresses amazement that the one person he was trying to defeat wanders boldly into his napping spot. He tells us to prepare ourselves to do battle, and the fight begins. The fight is quick and humorous. Master Koga is treated as a comedic relief character, but is memorable for the humor and the special moves during the fight. After handily beating him, Master Koga pulls out all the stops, summoning a 127-ton sphere, and falls down the pit with the sphere dropping on him. The Thunder Helm appears, and we return to Gerudo Village. There we pass the helm to Ryu, who asks us how it looks. This causes a flashback with Urbosa. Urbosa has been listening to Zelda as Zelda cries into Urbosa's shoulder. Zelda is frustrated with herself that she cannot access her goddess powers and is envious of Link that he is able to wield the Master Sword so easily. Urbosa challenges Link to take good care of Zelda, then wakes Zelda with a thunderclap. The memory fades, Ryu tells us to meet her at the guard outpost, and the scene ends. Now a quick word about this segment. The moment I walked into my first ever fight with Master Koga, I legitimately laughed out loud. The Iga up until this point had been played mostly straight. They were dangerous to meet on the road and they could kill you quickly. If you got spotted in the hideout, chances were that you would not survive. However, once you make it to the Master Koga fight, all seriousness is dropped as you wonder how that guy could possibly be the leader of the Iga. And honestly, his end is a little tragic. Even though he is silly, he ends up causing his own demise through his own incompetence. He's a pretender on the throne, having grown proud over the years. Then, when challenged, he defeats himself and causes his own doom. Also, as I mentioned before with Mipha, the Gerudo memory is superb. We learn a lot about Zelda and Link's relationship at the time, how Zelda is trying her best but is discouraged because she thinks her best isn't enough, and how there is a bit of a rift between Zelda and Link due to Zelda's own frustrations with herself. We also learn about Urbosa, how she acted as a mother to Zelda, as Zelda's actual mother passed away sometime previously, and how, like a mother hen, she defends Zelda from anyone and everyone that might hurt her, including Link should he stray off the track too far. We also learn about the power we will receive later in a funny moment. All of this in just a couple minutes. Returning to the game, it's time to take on the Divine Beast. Ryu activates the Thunder Helm, we charge the Divine Beast and explode its feet 8 times total. The Divine Beast drops and we enter. Urbosa ribs us for taking our time and tells us we need a map. Once the map is acquired, she tells us that we need to activate the terminals. Once they are activated, she tells us to trigger the main control unit. Doing so, we come face to face with Thunderblight Ganon. Out of all the Blights, this one is by far the hardest. I remember years after the game came out hearing people's pleas for help on the subreddit over this fight. Anyway, we quick dodge, parry, and magnesis our way to victory. Thunderblight goes down and Vah Naboris is freed. We collect our heart, activate the terminal, and Urbosa appears. She tells us she's still holding a grudge against Ganon after all of these years and longs to finally destroy him. She also reminds Link that he bears no blame for what happened 100 years ago, and that she is still proud of Zelda. We get teleported out, and Vah Naboris takes up position targeting Ganon. Urbosa then monologues on how much she yearns to defeat Ganon, even commenting that since Ganon was once a Gerudo male, she could make this fight personal. We reappear at the entrance to Gerudo Town with Urbosa's fury. After a celebratory conference in the throne room, the Gerudo quest is completed. Commenting on this section, I want to talk about the Divine Beasts as a whole. As I mentioned previously with Vah Ruta, they tend to be rather short. However, I also want to mention that they can also get rather repetitive. While no two terminal puzzles are ever alike, there isn't much variation amongst the Divine Beasts. You move a part of the Divine Beast's body to interact with the puzzles. Every Divine Beast starts with needing a map. Every Divine Beast has 5 terminals. Once the terminals are activated, we can trigger the main control unit. The main control unit always spawns the boss. While they are cool in concept and enjoyable the first time around, they definitely feel like the weakest link on the 10 to 15th playthrough. I want to take time to appreciate again the storytelling depth Nintendo implemented in this game. One line Urbosa says is that Link bears no blame for what happened 100 years ago. Now, if you've gotten to this point without recollecting all the memories, this doesn't make much sense, but hints at something deeper. If you have gotten all the memories, then this line hits hard. 100 years ago, Link almost lost his life defending Zelda and Hyrule from Calamity Ganon and the hundreds of Guardians that went rogue. However, Link did survive, but surely would cause some survivors guilt, that if he had only pushed a little harder, he could have saved more people or possibly defeated Ganon. The reassurance from Urbosa is a nice bit of dialogue into the state of Link's mind and the history of Link. Back to the game, it is once again time to pick a Divine Beast to do. This time I decided to go with the Rito quest and take on Vah Medoh. I fly on over to the Rito, and once again we are treated to an introduction to the Divine Beast. We see it flying in the skies, screeching its challenge to any who would dare approach. After talking with the village elder, we go talk to Tiba's wife, Saki. She tells us where to find Tiba and points us towards Revali's landing. Seeing the landing triggers a memory, this time showing us Revali. In the memory, Revali gloats over Link's inability to fly and preens himself while depicting himself as the superior warrior to Link. Revali then takes off in a gale and the memory fades. After assuring Saki that we are okay, we head over to the flight range to meet Tiba. There, he brushes us off. However, after we persist, he finally agrees to let us help him stop Vah Medoh if we can prove ourselves. After easily doing so, we take off and do battle with the Divine Beast. Gliding through the air and avoiding laser fire, we knock out all 4 cannons, dropping the shield. Tiba wishes us luck and returns to Rito Village, and we sail into the Divine Beast. Going back, as I have talked about the champion's memories twice so far, I will not repeat myself here. However, I do want to shed some light on Tiba's character. On a normal playthrough, people may only interact with him for a few minutes. As such, his character may not shine through. However, examining his story reveals a somewhat tragic tale that we managed to rescue. Tiba was born a Rito warrior. From a young age, he would fight to defend his town. As he grew, his skills and prowess grew as well. However, one day the Divine Beast reawakened. This was a foe beyond any Rito, and effortlessly stopped all other warriors. Tiba himself went to challenge the Divine Beast with his friend, but his friend was badly injured and Tiba barely escaped. Now, knowing his role as village defender, but knowing that he has no hope of winning, he prepares to mount one last offensive against the Divine Beast. Either he would succeed or die trying. Just at that moment, Link arrives, offering Tiba the help that he so desperately needs, thereby saving his life and defeating the Divine Beast in one fell swoop. What I appreciate most about this game is that none of this backstory is shoved in your face. Instead, the game leaves hints and threads of story for discerning players to find, but those looking to get back into the action can breeze by and not miss much. Nintendo stayed consistent with their approach so far to such issues by stepping back and letting the player discover things for themselves. Naturally, this means that not every player will find everything their first playthrough. However, this does guarantee that players will learn new things about the game for years to come. Back to the game, after boarding Vah Medoh, we are greeted by Revali. Acting stuck up and proud as ever, he tells us we need a map to work our way through the Divine Beast. However, being an epic gamer, we bypass the map and activate all the terminals without once turning the Divine Beast. Once all terminals are activated, Windblight rears his ugly mug for us to beat. One decisive battle and about 30 arrows later, Windblight goes down and Vah Medoh is free. We get our heart container and activate the main control unit, and meet Revali finally. He thanks us in a half-hearted, reluctant sort of way, and gives us Revali's Gale. However, right as we disappear, Revali reveals that he has a heart and mentions our task to rescue Zelda. Vah Medoh takes up position on top of the village, aims at Ganon in the castle, and Revali grudgingly admits to our prowess in battle, and acknowledges we did finally make it up to the Divine Beast on our own. We rematerialize back in Rito Village, talk to the Elder, and finally complete the Rito quest. Taking a step back, let's look at Revali's character. While he has become quite a meme in the Zelda community for his salty attitude towards Link, I do appreciate hints at his quiet thoughts and heart in the moments where Link both teleports away and while Revali stands atop Vah Medoh alone. While he could never humble himself in front of anyone, we do see that beneath the brash exterior is a meek heart. It gives him depth as a character and makes him less one-dimensional. Returning to the game again, it is time to tackle the last Divine Beast. So we make our way over to the Gorons in Death Mountain. On our way up, we acquire fireproof armor. Entering the city, we talk to Bluto, the Goron chief. He complains of back problems and asks us to go check on Yunobo in the abandoned North Mine. Yunobo was supposed to have returned with said painkillers earlier, however he has not come back yet. So we battle our way there where he is trapped, free Yunobo with a cannon, learn that Yunobo is a wuss, then head back into town. Once back in town, we get the memory of Daruk. Here we see Daruk learning how to pilot the Divine Beast. However, while in his training, the volcano rumbles and sends down massive boulders. Daruk breaks them with his protection, but begins to wonder what is going on if the mountain is starting to wake up. The memory fades and we're back talking with Bluto. Bluto thanks us for our help, but throws us back out again. He asks us to go tell Yunobo that the attack is off. However, we disobey him and instead replace the boss. We then battle our way up the mountain, launching Yunobo at the beast repeatedly. Eventually, we damage the beast enough that it crashes into the volcano crater. After a pep talk from Yunobo, we leap in after it. Once inside the Divine Beast, Daruk welcomes us heartily. He, like the others, tells us that we need a map of the Divine Beast. So we head inside, light a few torches, and acquire said map. Then, big surprise, he tells us we need to activate terminals. After doing so, we go to activate the main control unit. After that, Fireblight appears. However, he's stupidly easy, so one quick fight later and Vah Rudania is free. We collect our heart crystal, fire up the main control unit one more time, and meet Daruk. Daruk is apologetic that he died all those years ago and wasn't able to help them defeat Ganon. However, now that he's free, he's roaring to go. He gives us Daruk's protection and sends us on our way. Vah Rudania returns to the top of Death Mountain, takes aim at Ganon in the castle, and Daruk begins his monologue. He wonders if any of the Gorons survived. That's just when he sees Yunobo, his descendant, and raises a fist in triumph over the fact that the Gorons are still going strong. Yunobo, seeing the ghost of Daruk, connects with his ancestors and gains some courage. We return to Goron Village, where we're thanked by Bluto. With that, the Goron quest and all 4 divine beasts are done. Now let's go back over that section with a fine-tooth comb, starting with Yunobo. While I can see and appreciate the character arc he goes through, I would argue he is perhaps the weakest of the allies. All we learn about him is that he's shy, but becomes courageous after seeing Daruk. There's no more depth to his character, and unfortunately his development feels a bit forced and unnatural. Also, I want to mention Daruk. He is my favorite champion for his wholesomeness and desire to protect others. And I think his character is rather well written. However, just like Yunobo, his character could have used a bit more time in the oven. He is shown to be the protector of others, and that is expressed again as a ghost where he brings up his regret over not being able to save them. But other than this one thing, there really isn't anything more to his character. With the divine beasts out of the way, Zelda tells us we're finally ready to head to the castle and face Ganon. But instead, I'm going to go grab the Master Sword first. So I power through a bunch of shrines, trade my soul for some heart crystals, and make my way to the Korok Forest. Once there, the Deku Tree wakes up, greets us, reawakens memories, and warns us that pulling the Master Sword is not for the faint of heart. So without pause, we draw the Master Sword and claim our prize. How many hearts does it take again? Now it's time to lay the smackdown on Ganon. Scaling the castle, we finally come to the sanctum. Once inside, Zelda warns us that Ganon has finally overpowered her and to watch out. Ganon then bursts forth from his cocoon, drops to the floor, and plunges both him and us into the pit below. But just as he's getting to his feet, the 4 champions fulfill their oath. One by one, the divine beasts fire their weapons. The lasers combine and blast Ganon, withering him under their onslaught. But it's still not enough, and Ganon rises to his feet once again. Now it's our turn to finish the job. We dodge, we weave, and we parry our way around his attacks, slowly whittling down his health. Eventually we land the fatal blow and Ganon recoils. As he bleeds out and faces his own destruction, he pulls out all the stops. Forcing his malice to stay together, he flies out of the castle and reforms into Dark Beast Ganon, a colossal monstrosity hell-bent on absolute destruction. But Zelda gives us one last bit of aid, urging us forward, even though we may not remember everything, and grants us the Bow of Light. We acquire it and once again dodge and weave around Ganon's attacks. Zelda opens up weak points through the malice that we can attack. We chip down his health until only one hit remains. Ganon's forehead splits open and we finally see his true malice eye. One more shot and the eye is put out for good. Ganon goes to the ground and Zelda bursts from his back. Ganon once again takes to his malice form and rushes Zelda, but with her goddess powers being truly awakened and him being weakened with his fight with Link, he is repelled and banished from Hyrule. Zelda recalls her powers, the sky returns to normal, and we finally meet Zelda. She turns to face us, thanks us for saving her. She expresses her faith in us, letting us know that she never lost hope that we would return. She then asks one last question. Do we remember her? The screen fades, and the game comes to a close. Overall, this is a fantastic game. The love and care the devs had for every single part really shines through. The powers and abilities you gain throughout the game help to complement the world rather than feeling secondary or tacked on. The landscape is beautiful and greatly varied, with rolling plains, deep jungles, icy mountaintops, and endless deserts. The shrines, while short, provide a fun break from exploration. The combat is engaging and difficult without being unfair. Enemy variety is appreciated, especially the Guardians. The flying ones still make me run away. The game has such depth that I was discovering new things about it years after I started playing. In fact, I didn't collect the last Korok seed until about 4 years after I started my first playthrough. The races of Hyrule are well developed and fleshed out. The story is exquisitely done, even if it's so subtly hinted at that most players miss many of the finer points. And aside from a few issues with the Divine Beast, this is a solid game that still, to this day, remains one of my favorite games, and I would argue one of the best Zelda games ever made. Thank you so much for watching this far. This has been a joy to make and a pleasure to talk about. I want to mention that this is technically part 1 of a 2-part series. In the last half, we'll be going over Tears of the Kingdom with a fine-tooth comb, comparing and contrasting that game to Breath of the Wild. So stay tuned for that and subscribe so you don't miss it. But anyway, that's all I got for today. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, and all that jazz that the good YouTubers say, and I shall see you all in the next one. Take care.